What's up, everybody? This is Alex Worldwide Keller, and you're listening to The Card is Going to Change. And let me tell you about one of our beautiful, amazing, gracious, and awesome sponsors. That's right, it's Pollyanna DIY at Pollyanna DIY on Twitter, on Instagram. Go to PollyannaDIY.com, and you can get all sorts of amazing buttons, shirts, pins, the whole kit and caboodle. That's right, PollyannaDIY.com. But now, let's take it to the reason that you hit download, the reason that you are streaming. That's right, the card is going to change.
Hello once again, everybody. Thanks for listening to AIW's The Card is Going to Change. Before we get into this week's episode, as always, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors that help us bring the show to you for free each and every week. Firstly, thanks to Angelo's Pizza. They're feeding us here as they always do while we record, and they, of course, bring pizza to you at our live events at Mount Carmel. If you want to try more of their pizza or anything else on their menu, it's all delicious. Head to Angelo's on Madison Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio. And thanks to Smart Mark Video, they record all of our live events. And if you want to relive any of those or watch them for the first time, you can purchase that on DVD or digital download from smartmarkvideo.com. And additionally, head to powerbomb.tv, sign up using the code ABSOLUTE, and you will get a 20-day trial for free. And then stick around and just keep watching the shows that we put out there from the AIW archives. And as always, thanks to Jack Prince, who helps take care of all of our printing and graphic design needs. They can do all of that and more for you, whether it be banners, t-shirts, business cards, flyers, everything and anything. For all that they have to offer, head to jackprince.com.
JAKPrince.com.
That voice right there, none other than Josh Prohibition joining us again. We have a room full of, I don't know, at the moment they're just spectators listening in here, almost like a live recording. They may chime in, but of course...
Worldwide, I got to give it to Worldwide, because Worldwide has just been shaking, wanting to ask one question.
Should we just let him ask it before we even get to intros?
This is a great
There
start.
it is.
I'm happy already.
I've been sitting here for exactly 1 week. It's been 1 week on Thorne's couch. I have not moved a muscle because you guys went about your day, went to your jobs, hung out with your families. I've been here for 1 week waiting to ask this question.
All right.
You were talking about early 2000s, late 90s, Cleveland wrestling. I need to know. Did you ever work Wicked Billy Myers or Mojo, a.k.a. the Renegades?
I unfortunately never had the opportunity to step in the ring, but I was on a show with those fine individuals.
Was it OCW?
Yes.
At the Headlands Community Center? Or was it when they moved to Painesville?
I want to say Painesville. Yeah, it was Matt and I in the opening match, but I do remember those fine individuals. But yes, I did frequent one of their shows.
Yes. I mean, they were right up the street from me, so yeah, I messed around with them a little bit in high school, junior high.
Nice.
Was a big fan. Mojo. And Wicked Billy Myers, who had a GeoCities website where one time he had to walk out on a match. So on his Angel Fire website or GeoCity website, he's like, I got something known as a stinger and I had to walk out of my match. Sorry, guys. I'll make it up next time. And Wicked Billy Myers, if you're out there, fuck yeah, brother. And Mojo, if you're alive, additional fuck yes. I got to go to the gym. It's been a week. I've been sedentary in this fucking couch.
Work out that Thanksgiving turkey you ate.
Turkey jerky, maybe, baby. I'm fucking on the hunt for a slimmer Worldwide because Duke's talking some shit. So I'll see y'all later.
Get them, Worldwide. Get them.
Love you guys.
Get them.
Well,
that was
All right. Well, so that was Worldwide. We may
Look
still
at Billy Myers. That was a blast from the past.
That was, I remember Matt and I opened a show for him, and Matt did a moonsault to the outside, and I tore my PCL on my right knee. That was very early on in my career, and it cost me a Don Joy brace I had to wear for at least the first year and a half, 2 years of my wrestling career.
So if you haven't figured out yet, with John Thorne here, AIW owner, and of course Steve Guy here, moderator of sorts, we're picking right back up where we left off with Josh Prohibition and talking about, 20 years worth of wrestling.
I mean, we just left it on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
So
Tell me more about this.
Let's get into the big CZW, XPW jump. Well, first off, how many CZW shows did you guys even do? Because I feel like it wasn't that many.
No, it wasn't. It was probably 7 or 8 total.
And how does the XPW thing? Because if you look back on the grand scheme of things of XPW, it's kind of not taken too seriously. But at this given moment in time, XPW had a lot of hype and buzz about it that it was going to be the next big thing.
Yeah. So we're in CZW, and like I had mentioned last week, we're losing money. On every trip we're losing money, and I think one of the things that left a bad taste in our mouth is when you're told your first match is tryout pay, and then the following bookings are going to be the real payday, and it ends up being your tryout pay every single time you show up, and you're being asked to take pretty extraordinary risks for your tryout pay and losing money. It starts to sour a little bit. But anyway, when I was at Kent State in 1999, I remember watching XPW on television. They actually had the show, televised. So, I mean, I had known what XPW was. I knew it was out in LA.
On the Cat, wasn't it called the Cat?
It was the Cat, yeah.
Channel 35,
broadcast.
The Cat.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew about XPW, but actually, I was like, if ECW had a gang, like I was part of their gang. Like I would have fought for ECW. So I remember, that pay-per-view when the XPW guys showed up and were in the front row, and they tried to hop the rail and they got beat up by the locker room.
Yeah, they did something.
Yeah, so I mean, I was kind of angry at XPW for that, but this is before I officially got trained. But anyway, so we're in CZW. It's not going the best. There was a few guys in the locker room who we didn't particularly like, and I don't think they particularly liked us. And I just felt like, in a way they were trying to bury us. So it just wasn't a good vibe, And Zandig was kind of a scary guy to work for.
Do you think it was because at that time, I feel like CZW was probably all pretty much locally based talents for the most part, and you guys were kind of coming in from the outside? Or
yeah, you know what? I never knew exactly what it was, but yeah, I mean, we were really some of the only Midwest guys on those shows. It was almost all East Coast talent.
So do you think maybe that
maybe
kind of caused a rift?
I don't know. I mean, because we came in so hot, and I felt like our momentum died very, very quickly. So anyway, so we're in CZW. We're about 6-7 shows in, and I get a call from the gentleman that produced the Backyard Wrestling video game and the videotapes, and they said that they are now financially backing XPW. They're going to pour a ton of money into it, and they want us to jump ship. And
was this Big Vision Entertainment?
I don't even remember what they called it at that time. But so they're basically giving me this guarantee that XPW will never go under. They're willing to pump tens of thousands of dollars into it. They're heading towards pay-per-views. And these are the people that are putting out these Backyard Wrestling videos, and they're making all this money. So I'm like, I'm going to believe them.
Yeah, you got no reason not to.
And I'm still thinking the payday is coming from the Backyard Wrestling stuff. So I'm still kind of under their thumb in that regard.
The thing I remember about this around this time, it may happen after you guys start. I'm not, sure what the timeline, but I remember XPW got an exclusive lease on the ECW arena, and that was like a huge deal.
Yeah, so they paid a ridiculous amount of money to get that exclusive lease, and so they basically bought the ECW arena, so nobody else could use it. And we kind of knew that was going on. So anyway, Chris Hamrick, who was already well established in XPW, he began calling. They had talked to Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn put in a call Tracy Smothers called. So guys that I really respected had called and said, hey, jump ship.
Yeah.
And I started seeing the guys that they were booking, and they're basically booking all the old ECW guys. You start to see,
Danny
Doring and Chetty and Candido. Shane Douglas is running the locker room. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, exclusive lease at the ECW arena. Every single ECW guy I used to watch on TV that's still alive.
Yeah.
And they're telling us they're going to pay us a lot more money than we were making in CZW, and they're going to pay-per-view. And they actually gave me a contract, and it had, like, I don't know how it worked out, but essentially I was supposed to get paid $45,000 for the year, regardless of how many shows we did.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Matt and I signed that contract, and never saw that money. But it was supposed to be basically a $45,000 contract for the year. And
Like a downside guarantee or something?
yeah. And so, of course, lose money or make $45,000 for this year.
Which at that time, that's probably an astronomical amount of money.
That's more than I made my first year of teaching, So we're like, of course, this is a no-brainer, So we make the decision. So our last show for CZW was Cage of Death. I don't know if it was 2002 or 2003, somewhere in that ballpark. Like totally sold out show. It was like 1,100, 1,200 in the arena, packed to the gills. And then the next week, we show up at XPW unannounced. And just to kind of give you the vibe in the locker room at that point. So we're sitting in our last CZW show, but nobody knows it. We've already committed to go. We've worked it out. We've got the logistics worked out. We're going to do this last CZW show and then drive back the next week to Philly again and do XPW. And we knew that it was going to be a big deal. Because there was such tension at that time, and there was so much anger,
because they were at war. Or
yeah, it was a
whatever.
war. They buy the arena, and then the other thing that compounded it was, there was a claim, by Messiah that his thumbs were cut off by a couple of goons that Rob Black had sent.
That was on America's Most Wanted or
yeah,
something.
so the Messiah got his thumbs cut off, and they tried to cut his penis off, and he thought it was Rob Black from XPW. So there's that tension.
Okay.
So we're sitting in the locker room, and it's before Cage of Death. We're still in CZW, and Zandig starts going into one of his Zandig speeches, and he's starting to get all worked up, and we're just kind of sitting there looking at him, and he starts talking about how he knows there's a couple rats in this locker room, and I'm thinking to myself, oh God, like
You guys were set up, or
I'm like, what can we grab if we have to start swinging stuff here? Like, to try to get out of here alive, because we could get killed in here. And, Matt and I are kind of giving us like we're giving each other the Iggy, like, dude, you get ready to run. Like, because Zandig's a scary human being, and you have wife beater there, Nate Hatred, Nick Gage.
a lot of other scary
Justice
humans.
Payne. Yeah, I mean, there's some scary individuals.
Lobo.
And it turned out it was just some kid that helped with Ring Crew was like floating secrets to XPW or something. It turned out to be him. So they didn't know about us, thank God.
Good thing you guys didn't give yourselves up either.
I know.
Right?
I'd be like, I'm sorry, Zan. I never should have done it.
Yeah, that kid get murdered? The captain wants to know.
No, I don't think he got murdered. I don't remember exactly what happened to him. But
nobody's
anyway,
found him.
So thankfully we get out of there alive. We drive back to Cleveland, kind of, wiping the sweat off our brow, like, oh, thank God that they didn't know it was us. We show up in XPW the next week, and I don't know, man. There was a lot of good things about XPW, but there was a lot of stuff that was just brutal. And in some ways.
So what's the vibe when you arrive though? Like,
the vibe was so we're excited, at first, kind of going into it, because we walk into the locker room, and it's everybody. Psychosis and Candido, Doring, Chetty, Simon Diamond, like everybody's standing there, and then all of a sudden, as soon as I'm like, I haven't even put my bags down yet. Here comes the freaking Sandman, and he's running the locker room at that time. And I know you had him in recently. I'm not going to talk very positively about him here. He cuts me off, so that I can't even put my bag down, and he gets in my face, and I'm talking nose to nose, and I mean, he is just reeking of booze. And I don't swear normally, so this is me doing my Sandman. He gets in my face and goes, "Who the fuck are you?" And I'm like, "Hi, sir. My name's Josh Prohibition. I'm nice to meet you." And he, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And I mean, there's spit like hitting my face, and my blood pressure's just like through the roof. And he won't cut it out, man. He's like, "What the fuck do you think you're doing here?" I'm like, "Well, sir, I'm wrestling tonight." "Who the fuck do you think you're wrestling?" And I mean, like spit just. like I need an umbrella. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be wrestling Mexico's Most Wanted. And they're like, he's like, the fuck you're supposed to be. He's like, listen here, you two motherfuckers. If you don't catch those motherfuckers on every dive, if you don't make them look like $1 million fucking dollars. And I mean, again, spit. He's like, I'm going to drag you out back and kick your fucking ass. And I mean, I'm just like, what did we get ourselves into?
Yeah.
Like, this is my introduction, you know? And no exaggeration, 10 minutes later, fired. Kicked out of the locker room. Rob Black bounced him. He was gone. Like they threw him out. They fired him on the spot and bounced him out of XPW. And I don't know if it was specifically the way he was, behaving towards me, or if it was like his prolonged behavior for the day. But yeah, he was gone. And at that point, the relationship with the other guys was excellent. Like the other guys in the locker room, like it was a big party, man. It was like, it was fun. Everybody was cool. A lot of joking around, a lot of ribbing. And it was fun.
So this is like a relief for you, because at this point you guys are like, "Yep, we made a good choice."
Yeah, after the Sandman thing, but then all of a sudden it comes crashing down again, and here's why. So when we were negotiating the jump, we were kind of obviously talking about angles and gimmicks and like what they were thinking, and we kind of pitched the idea that, hey, like let us be ourselves, like we're kind of jackass punk rockers, like let us just be who we are. So we were pitching them some names like the Burning River Brigade, kind of a Cleveland, Cleveland deal, and we gave them a few good names. I was gonna be Josh Prohibition. M-Dog was gonna go become Matt Cross, get rid of the the Eminem kind of rip-off gimmick. And they were on board with it. They're like, cool, this sounds good. And they'd even mentioned like having that band like CKY, kind of be our play us out and actually play live there. And have us come to the ring to that. And so we get there, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, here's your sparkly silver tights. They had bought us gear, and made us gear. And they're like, so Josh, we're gonna spray your hair silver. And we're going to put eyeliner on you and Matt. You guys are both going to wear eyeliner. And your name's going to be Josh, and his name's going to be Matt. And I was like, dude, you're trying to turn us into Chuck and Billy. Like, what do you mean Josh and Matt? Like, that's our wrestling name? And he's like, and then your name's going to be Euthanasia. And we're just like, what happened to, like, the punk rock thing, Yeah. And here's the other one. They're like, okay, you're going to come out to that Eminem song, Lose Yourself. And I was like, nothing that you're saying is adding up here. And this is where Kevin Kleinrock gave me like a speech. He's like, listen, he's like, you know what they call Rob Black? They call him Star Maker, Star Breaker. And he's making you a star tonight. And he's giving me this like, he's giving me this like, this spiel about how he's made all these guys. And I'm just sitting there biting my lip. And so we start to go out there, and Rob Black's in the back, and he was always pretty enhanced. So I mean, he's feeling it, he's all wound up.
Has his energy.
Oh, he had a lot of energy. And so we're sitting there behind the curtain, and the music hits, and we start trying to go out. He's like, wait, you gotta wait. I mean, this Lose Yourself song lasts like 3 minutes before it hits.
Oh yeah,
and we're standing there, and we're just like, they're gonna boo us out of the building if you make them wait 3 minutes for our entrance. And we're sitting there like, and it's us, Josh and Matt.
Yeah,
like they were expecting this big special announcement, like they didn't know it was us, and that's what it turned out to be. But anyway, we come out as they kept calling us cyberpunks, whatever that means. They kept saying, you guys are gonna be cyberpunks, which sounded kind of cool, but like
cyber bullies.
I don't even know what
hackers. Nobody really knows what it is. Yeah.
But so we got there, and it's me and Matt versus Halloween and Damien 666, and who was just on a show recently.
Amigo.
Yeah, he was a good guy. And so we go out there, and it's for the XPW tag team belts. First night there, Wow. So we're out there for the belts, and we're going over, and didn't really feel comfortable with that. Like, but they wanted to make a statement to CZW, like these guys jumped, now they're champs, and. We get in there in the ring with them, and no exaggeration, they destroyed us. Like, and I think the attitude was two new kids, young gringos, coming into XPW, taking the belts on the first night. And I mean, the amount of times that I got chopped and slapped in the face and like just brutalized, was unbelievable. But afterwards, honestly, they put us over, obviously, but they were really complimentary, because I think we took it. And actually, I got some papers from Mexico, and they brought them back up with them when they came, and they were like showing us and translating what it meant. And they basically were like putting us over in the Mexican newspapers and like, which was kind of cool, you know, because I mean, but you know, in the match, I'm like, these guys must hate us. They must hate us so much, you know, because they put such a beating on us. But I remember like being in the hotel, and again, XPW was nice because they would get you a hotel, you know, laying in that hotel bed, like barely able to move. But I was like, okay, you know, we did it. We got our belts.
But this is like, you think about everything you just said. I mean, some of it doesn't add up, but Euthanasia is kind of it's punk rocky kind of a name, the way they do it. It sucked. People still remember you guys as that.
It sounded edgy.
Yeah, but at the same time, to go from where you were, you know, you're still chasing this hope that the payday's coming, right? But now you jump to XPW.
First night, do you think that you made it? Do you think that you...
Yeah. I mean, they're buying you gear. Had anybody bought you gear yet?
No.
You know what I mean? You're being put up in a hotel. Aside from Jackie, or is anybody
gears,
putting you
hotels, flights, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like at that point, after we got through the Sandman incident and I survived my first match, that, you know, this was a good decision. And, you know, next thing I know, we're flying out to L.A. for double shots. You know, we went out to L.A. And I mean, when we went out to L.A., again, it was the Who's Who card. It's like Raven and X-Pac and, you know, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's on that show. Douglas. And it was basically ECW revisited, you know.
Right.
And it's Shane Douglas. And it was cool, too, because, I mean, Douglas was... he was real good to us, man. Like he taught us, you know. So like after matches, he would pull me aside and he would be, you know, give me very good constructive criticism, stuff that I actually took and used. I remember even in that match against Mexico's Most Wanted, my first match, like I said, they were beating the heck out of me. I probably got chopped 20 to 25 times, you know, like the real serious. And that guy, Halloween, swings it. I mean, like bloody chest, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember one chop, and I was in pain. Like I did bitch out, and I kind of turned a little bit, you know. And believe me, Shane Douglas let me hear about it in the back. Like I got there, and he's like, "You never, ever, ever," you know. And he was like in my grill, you know, and he laid into me, and I was, you know, yes sir, I did. I apologize, you know, that was my bad. But he also took time to kind of say, hey, when you do this, I would do this, or I would do it this way. And, you know, that stuff's invaluable.
Yeah.
And I think that was the other thing I loved about XPW is like, I learned. Like, I got in there with Candido and Chetty. You know, it's like those dudes know so much about wrestling.
So you had pretty much an entire roster of trainers.
Exactly. And I mean, and this was the other cool thing. It just popped in my head. Even before shows, Tracy Smothers would run camps.
That's what I was going to ask, because that was always like a rumor.
Yeah.
Was like Tracy Smothers would run drills and things to make sure the roster was in like tip top shape and like running people through all these like, you know, like a wrestling school before every show. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it was. So we would go through and, you know, he would basically say, okay, this is the drill we're doing. This is what we're going to do. And then he'd critique you. And I was looking at the guys that were running these drills, and it wasn't just like, you know, us young guys. I mean, there was like established pros, like they were in there working, you know, and working with us.
Right.
And I remember even Mickie James was in there, and this was before she was even signed, you know, and she was running the drills, and there was just so many, you know, quality wrestlers in there. And again, it was one of those chances to improve and to learn the craft. But yeah, it was a cool environment, you know, for a short period of time. It was a cool environment.
It's crazy to kind of see that a parallel between, you know, what you're going with there and then AIW of, I don't know, maybe even like 3 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, but, you know, like the class of students that came through AIW now, it's kind of like what they went through when you're going into a locker room and you've got Josh Prohibition, Eddie Kingston, Cole Cabana, Sanjay Dutt, Johnny Gargano, all of these guys to learn that they're all right there, you know, like Dom coming into AIW. This is it, you know, like that's, I don't know. That's a parallel I can draw from that.
Yeah,
it's just hard to. How do you?
No, I know.
How do you even compare that locker room otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't.
You're not going to put
myself
there.
on there. Yeah, but I'd throw Colt and Sonjay and, you know, and Johnny into that. Yeah. I mean, they have become the elite, you know, as far as their wrestling ability and knowledge and. Yeah, I mean, it's such an incredible resource that if you're not taking advantage of it, you know, when it's there, especially. Yeah. I mean, everybody you just named is incredibly approachable, you know?
Right.
It's not like any of those guys you're scared to go up to and say hi or to ask a question, you know? So,
even Matt. I should have thrown Matt's name in there because, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wealth of talent, and you think of all the matches those guys have under their belt, to have them as a resource and to be able to talk to them is, you know, like I said, it's invaluable. And, you know, it honestly, like, when it comes to wrestling training, there's only so much you can learn, like in a training center, in a training environment, and then the rest is going to come from matches, mistakes, and those locker room conversations.
Yeah.
And I always say this to guys that I like, that I'm trying to kind of mentor a little bit. When you get done with the match, first thing you ask is, "You okay?" To the guy you just wrestled. Just check to make sure you didn't potato him or anything. But the other one I always say is, what did I do that sucked? What out? But be brutally honest. Don't try to hide my. If I did something that looked bad or felt bad or what did I do that was bad or what did I do that sucked? And take that advice and obviously use it to improve.
We had this conversation when I think it was after you had the match with young Joshua Bishop in Akron. And it was a list of, was it 3 or 5 things?
The 5 things?
The 5 things? Yeah.
Yeah, especially young guys, because I still get nervous a little bit now just because I haven't been wrestling as much. So, but when I was going hard, like I didn't really get many nerves anymore, But
right.
I remember that feeling being, very early on and feeling like you're going to have diarrhea and faint at the same time before you go out there. That horrible feeling. And I'm trying to get my rules here straight. Number 1, have fun. Number 2, don't hurt me. Number 3, listen. Number 4, keep talking. I think that's important. Sometimes guys get scared in a match and they start moving really fast and not communicating anymore.
Sure.
And then I think number 5 was, again, don't hurt me. Those are my rules. When I wrestle guys, I always kind of lay that out that, hey, I'm into the professional aspect of wrestling. I'm not out here to get potatoed. If I wanted to go into MMA, I would have gone into MMA,
Yeah.
I like the art of it and making stuff look painful without actually taking my head off.
Would you, when you were in XPW, would you kind of compare that to going to a wrestling college or something, like a very crazy environment to get thrown into in a very short amount of time?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were given more than we deserved at that time. And there was, obviously it was just kind of a strange set of circumstances with the backyard guys getting involved. Matt and I, when we wrestled each other, it was spectacular. But when we'd get in there with other guys, it was just blah, But I think we were given too much too soon. But in a way, it made us grow up faster and to improve much more quickly than we would have in just kind of taking the normal path. It was kind of like getting thrown into the fire, and it's like, hey, you got to sink or swim right here.
Yeah.
We're going to put you in with some world class athletes, guys that have been on television. And you got to hang or you're going to go under.
And it wasn't like it wasn't like guys that were on television 30 years ago, like guys that were just on television that are peak in their career.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when we were getting in there with the Joey Matthews and Christian Yorks, and when they were the team of the future, they came over. We were wrestling them. The Dorings and the Chettys and the Candidos, and Mexico's Most Wanted. They had been in WCW, and they had done that, and they got off television there, and. Who else did we get in there with? It was just, pretty incredible. Like Bobby Quance and Jardy France, who kind of disappeared off the California scene, but those two guys were incredible.
Yeah, you always heard a lot about Jardy France.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he became a Navy SEAL and just kind of fell off the map, but I mean, those guys were just incredible wrestlers, and
Super Dragon, was he on some of those shows?
He was on a very early one before us, and I don't know if it's true or not. Super Danny, is a pretty interesting dude, but he kind of said that he did too well and they didn't want to have him back because he showed up the rest of the roster. I don't know if that's true or not, but they said he opened the show and he just did too much.
Now, at what point here, because we talked about this contract for $45,000, and you said, yeah, that...
I still have the contract. I think I tweeted a picture of it once.
This is a legal thing if you really wanted to. Not that you would, but at what point then does it kind of hit you and you're like, yeah, this is not going to probably happen?
So we went out to L.A. and here's the frustrating thing about XPW. The last 2 shows they did was a double shot in L.A., and the shows were absolutely incredible. Probably the best 2 shows that they had put on in their entire history. And they could not find a decent venue in Los Angeles for the price that they needed. They basically ran they ran inside a paintball facility. So, I mean, the walls are falling down. Everything's covered in splotches of paint, and they ran in there. Super hot crowd. just incredible in-ring action from the first to the last match. Just, absolutely incredible. But by that time, financially, that they were not sound, and I know Rob Black had some issues with the law.
Yeah, he got in some legal trouble, I think.
They were sending some stuff through the mail that they weren't allowed to send.
Oh.
And it was federal, so the federal government was after them. So a lot of money problems, and it just started getting kind of ugly. But that's, like I said, the frustrating thing was it was at its best when it died. Which is hard to see because it's like, this is so good right now.
They finally found their groove right when it's
exactly, too late. Yeah. If they had found that groove a year before or 2 years before, who knows what the future of XPW would have been. Maybe I would have got my $45,000.
And so at the same time, what's the backlash from CZW when this all happens? Is there backlash? I assume there is.
Oh, yeah. There was death threats. I got some voice messages, death threats from that. I think I talked about it on Cabana's podcast. Somebody actually recorded a rap song about me, like a diss about how they were going to kill me.
Oh.
And they called me, and I said hello, and they asked if it was Josh Prohibition, and then they busted into it. And it was like very intricate 2 to 3 minute rap song.
Wait, called you and busted into the rap?
Yeah. So they waited for me to say, like, oh, this is Josh Prohibition, and then, boom, they hit it, and they just freestyled this rap, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
I bet.
But it was like total gangster rap, like they're going to murder me, watch your back kind of thing.
Is that Ruckus?
It wasn't Ruckus. Ruckus and I were okay. But anyway, yeah, so Zandig was making comments about how, you got to be careful because next time you're in the ring with a CZW guy, you better watch your nose, just like saying stuff like that. And he talked a lot of trash about me in his shoot interview and said how condescending I was, which was kind of funny because I never talked, I kept my mouth shut. So I'm like, where did he get that from? Like, I didn't even, I didn't say anything. But it was bad blood. And there was like this strange period of time where, we were on shows with CZW guys. We're like, we don't know what's going to happen. Is this going to turn into a locker room brawl? And it was always kind of in the back of your head, like, this could get ugly, And it was kind of funny, too, like, Ian Rotten really liked Matt and I. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were doing an IWA show, and there was a lot of CZW guys on it. And he basically pulled Matt and I aside, and he's like, if anything goes down, all the IWA guys got your back. So it was like, is this going to turn into, like, a gang warfare?
Yeah.
Is this going to turn into, like, a 10-on-10, like... and it was kind of a wild time. It was pretty tense. Like, we really thought that there was a good chance of violence. Like, we thought that it could get legitimately ugly.
Because
go ahead.
Even though you had that $45,000 contract, you were still doing indies at the time, right?
Yeah, I was allowed to do any indie, obviously, except like CZW, Ring of Honor, and was it Major League Wrestling? I think there was only like 3 or so that I wasn't allowed to do.
Do you think without doing all of these with Matt at the time, you think you survive it?
We were kind of joined at the hip for a while.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have somebody that was on kind of the same level and, kind of same background.
And all the experiences in general.
Yeah. So, for the while there, it was like we were a package deal. And it was actually kind of strange when he started going one way and I started going the other. It was like, oh, this is weird. Like, we're not together anymore, I remember the first time, like, he went up to Canada. And I think I went out. I think I was doing PWG, and so we went 2 separate ways, and it was just very strange to to be separate. But anyway, yeah. So it was nice to have somebody that you could talk honestly with. The stuff I say with Matt in the car, I don't say to many people. So like him and I can share our true feelings and not worry about it leaving the car. So it was nice to have somebody to kind of bounce those things.
Well,
off
I'm just wondering too, as you run through the thread of these CZW guys, do you think? As you're going to, like you're saying, he goes to Canada, you go to PWG.
Yeah.
Usually when you're together, you're like, all right, I know that this guy at least has my back.
Well, Matt is 5'4", though, so
this is fair. Yeah. And he wasn't as thick as he is now.
Yeah, I think under the surface, he's a sweetheart, so I don't know.
Right.
I'd hope that he'd be in there to swing it, but but yeah, he's a good guy.
I think let's roll into. And I know Dom's got his microphone now. He's ready. I'm sure he's got all sorts of questions. Let's talk about the godfather of Cleveland wrestling here.
Are you referring to me?
That's right.
Oh, gosh.
This is...
I need T-shirts made.
Cleveland All-Pro. It's got to be weird as you walk into, like I've alluded to already, an AIW locker room now. Now you have these young kids who are like, oh, my gosh, I watched you on Cleveland All-Pro, and I watched you do this.
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them, yes.
It's a combination of flattering and also makes you feel old at the same time. I remember
let me ask you, how old did you feel when I brought that Mid-Ohio paper and that you sent me back like the first indie show I ever went to?
That made me feel old. Yeah. So I remember, when I first started, meeting Josh Bishop heading into our feud that we ran there for a few months. And he started talking about how he watched PWO, Pro Wrestling Ohio, which used to be on Sports Time Ohio here in the Cleveland area. And actually, if you had a satellite, you could see it around the country. But anyway, he had mentioned, he had watched that show, and I was thinking to myself, like, wait a second, like that last aired in 2008, and it's 2018, so that was 10 years ago, and you're only 20 years old, so you were watching me when you were 10 years old. And at that point, I was feeling a little old, but at the same time, like I said, it's kind of flattering as well.
Is that another feeling back then? You're in Cleveland, it's the hometown, you're wrestling, and you guys find out, look, you're going to be televised. This is going to be a regular thing. Is that another moment of this is going to be it? Or are you settling into like, you know what, this is something I want to do, but it's not the thing I want to do? Where does that come in?
I think because of some of my earlier experiences with backyard wrestling and, a lot of the media stuff and a lot of the promises, I started to realize pretty early that wrestling is basically like a carny business. Mm-hmm. And everybody's a salesperson, and and everybody's going to sell you the stars, and I am very, very cynical now. If somebody tells me about an opportunity or something, and that's just from experience, I don't. So yeah, when they told me they were getting on Sports Time Ohio, my reaction was cool. I'm like, it's not going to turn into a career. We're not going to make a lot of money. It might last a year or two. Let's have fun with it while it lasts. But yeah, I don't know. Sometime right around that same time in 2008, I also, I got to the point where I said, I need to find like a serious career, and that's when I went back to Cleveland State to get my my master. I remember Cole Cabana was talking about it on a podcast, I think with Ray Rowe, and they were kind of saying how that he made the decision to go all in. I felt like for a while I was all in, and at that point I kind of said, this is going to be a hobby for me. I'm going to find a career, and wrestling will be a hobby as opposed to what I was chasing.
Was there anything in particular that made you do? Was there an injury or watching somebody else go one direction?
Yeah, I think the majority of it was unfulfilled promises. And at that time, the WWE was very, very straightforward about, we're not hiring anybody that's not like 6'3", like 2.
It was a different time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they made a legitimate statement where they had like a height and a weight, and no matter what I did or who my pharmacist was, there was no possible way that I would achieve any of those, any of those demands that they were making.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of said, though, that's not an option, And,
right.
If WCW had collapsed, ECW was gone, XPW collapsed, UWA, which I was wrestling in Toronto, which was a really great promotion, they collapsed. So everybody collapsed. The only thing left was like WWE in like 2008, and it was just kind of like, well, let's move on.
There was a time though when you got done with your master's degree that you thought about going back all in again.
Yeah. I had gotten out of a bad relationship, and it was, I didn't have any kind of thing kind of holding me down, and I had thought about it, yeah. But actually, when I got my teaching job, it turned out that they caught wind that I was also a professional wrestler, and I had actually been honest in the interview with the principal and the superintendent because I didn't want them to be blindsided by it.
Right.
So I get hired, and then I get a call, and they say, hey, can you come in? We need to talk. And I was like, this sounds horrible. This sounds like a real bad conversation. So I show up, and the principal's like, we said we were cool with you wrestling, but we're going to have to kind of change that. You're not going to be able to wrestle anymore. Some of the teachers are concerned that you're a masochist. That's the exact word that they used.
Oh.
Like, isn't that somebody like hurts themselves sexually for pleasure? Like, isn't that what, like, anyway. Anyway, I'm like, well, I'm not a masochist. I had to stop wrestling for, almost a 2-year period because they had basically put the kibosh on it. And I remember PWO was still running old reruns on Sports Time Ohio, and there was a match of me, I think either versus Johnny or versus Matt, and I won their title. and I was holding it up and jumping up and down. And my principal was on Sports Time Ohio, and he saw it, and he comes running up to me in the hallway. He was like super excited. He's like, I saw you on television last night. You won the belt. You were like jumping up and down, And I was like, wait a second, like, didn't you tell me I can't wrestle because like you thought I was a masochist? He's like, oh, we know you now. Like, it's cool. He's like, you can wrestle again. So that's when I contacted John, and I said, I'm back in. And I remember, I think the first one was I jumped Greg Iron for something. Like I beat him up. I tried to offer my services, and I ended up pile driving him. And I think we did like a street fight. It was my first match back in AIW. And
because after that 2 years, you've lost your confidence a little bit, and then you want to do a street fight all the time. You get very you lost the. I think you think that 2 years off made you forget how to wrestle or something.
It's hard. I mean, like, and again, unless you've been in a ring, it's hard to know this or feel this. But there's nothing that can condition you for wrestling besides wrestling. Like the amount of, you can do 1 million burpees, you can sprint on the treadmill, but like when you get in that wrestling ring, like it's a different kind of cardio.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of in a way kind of lost my confidence, that I could still hang with some of the, the best wrestlers in the world. And I don't know. It took me a while to kind of get back into the groove. It's hard to step away for a couple years, cold turkey, and just have no in-ring time. And then,
sure,
I get back there, and Thorne and Biggins are throwing me in there with like Alex Shelley and stuff, like, oh, this guy is, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. Now I got to try to hang the guy that's been teaching school and, not doing any kind of cardio for 2 years, but yeah, it's, I'm back there now. I think, a match for me that I loved recently, it was me versus Josh Bishop in Akron, the first Akron show AIW ran. Yeah. I think we went about 20 minutes, and
that was a dream come true for him.
Yeah, and I was like, and I got to play a heel, which I rarely get to do anymore, and that's my wheelhouse, because I don't do anything cool. It's like, how am I going to get over as a face? Like, I can't do anything snazzy.
Yeah,
like I don't have that fire like baby faces have. How am I going to get over? So I just for some reason, because he was the hometown kid, I was automatically the heel, and I loved it. Like that's my wheelhouse. When I was at my best, I was a jerk off heel. And I was cowardly at times, and I was, taking cheap shots and cutting promos, and, that was when I was at my best. But I felt like, at that point, my cardio was good. I was running him under the table. He was telling me he was tired. He was asking me to slow down. And I felt pretty good, 'cause I'm like, this kid's 20. I'm 40, and he wants me to slow down,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, that was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I can still hang, and I was having fun. And that's, like I said, that's my, if I get done and I didn't have fun and I'm hurting, like, then I ask myself, why am I doing it? But those kind of matches I love.
One of the things I love about you, and weeks ago on this podcast, we talked about Magnum CK and unfortunately how he has to retire.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
But we talk about how such a great guy he is, and you could sit down and talk to him, and he just genuinely wants everybody else to succeed and everything too. You paved your road. You went on a different path. You got into teaching. You're a family guy now, and you love that life. Yeah. But you're not one of those people who's like, yeah, I love that life, but I'm bitter about the success of all these other guys. Every time somebody that you have been with, that you were working with throughout the years, has succeeded, I pay attention, and I look at Josh Prohibition when he's there, and you love it just as much as if it was you. Yeah, knowing that Johnny has made it. Matt on Lucha Underground, and
yeah,
even Ray's last show, which I always tell people, man, go watch that, because just for the farewell, unbelievably, touching and emotional. If wrestling could be.
I mean, and I'm perfectly cool with, knowing that I'm not going to be on any those guys' levels, Ray's level or Johnny's level. Like, I'm not going to make it there, and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm perfectly content with my life. But when I think it was like. It was one of those Tommaso versus Johnny matches. I remember I was watching. I had tears in my eyes. Like, I was so happy to see him doing what he was doing, because, like, even from the time he was, like, 16, 17, like, I knew there was something special about that dude,
Right.
And I even said it, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to try to find the AOL Instant Messenger conversation, because I remember probably 2002, 2003, it was probably 2003. I was trying to sell Super Dragon on Johnny Gargano. And I said, get on board. I'm like, this kid, I'm not exaggerating, has potential to be like a Shawn Michaels caliber talent. And I'm telling him this on Instant Messenger, and Super Danny was like blowing me off, like, you know, not giving me the time of day. And I told him that, you know, and there was just something different about him. And so like when I see guys like him having the success that he's had, it's like, you know, and I know it sounds really cheesy and cliche, but it's like part of me, you know, lives in him. You know,
Sure.
the wisdom or knowledge that I was able, you know, in some cases to impart in him and to try to teach him and try to mentor him, you know, like to see him successful, like it's like almost being like a proud parent. Like you take joy in that, and like there's no part of me that's like, oh, I wish I was me. You know, I wish I had that success. Like
And
no,
so many
it's
guys
like,
are like that though. But that's what I mean. That's what I love about you. You're
that
not.
drives me crazy.
You're
yeah, and I
as
like
you
so
said.
like last pay per view, I was saying it like, you know, Ray and Johnny, like two guys that I trained, like both on a WWE NXT pay per view, like killing it.
Yeah.
You know, like it was so amazing. It's like almost surreal. You sit back and be like, they did it. You know, two Cleveland dudes, like they did it.
Yeah.
Do you attribute that, and how, you know, just how you view things now? Do you attribute that to, you know, getting your personal life in order and getting your stability together to where wrestling wasn't what you needed to rely on? Like if Josh Prohibition 25, do you think would feel the same support as Josh Prohibition now? You know, because I've known you for a long time, and I've definitely seen the change in just mentality over the years.
That's a very deep question. I like it. What do you say when you get into the heart of the matter?
Get to the heart of the matter.
Man, you just got to the heart. Wow. So
So what we do here.
okay, so 25 years ago, all of a sudden Johnny and Ray are making it, and now here I am in Cleveland still doing, you know, indies.
Like you're still like the cool indie guy, but like
Yeah.
they've made it. Do you think
Ooh.
that, you know, like you're rocking NEPW? You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I'd like to say that I would be happy for the success. There would probably be a little more of me that would be a little jealous, but I definitely would be happy for them. But yeah, there'd be part of me that would be wishing that, you know, I was, you know, part of that equation.
Because I think
that's a great question.
You know, I think once you met your wife and you got the family together and you got the kid together, you know, you got the career. I think that there was such a 180 in the Josh Prohibition, the performer and the guy, you know, because there was a time where you were the guy and you kind of you did carry yourself like you were the guy, you know, around town, you know, so there was such a change for the better, I think, for everybody's, you know, doing, you know, like when you're 23 years old getting a $45,000 contract, you know what I mean? Like that kind of impacts you at that time to where I feel, you know, now you were just a genuinely in a happy place altogether.
Yeah. I mean, my personal life is, and again, I don't want to like brag about it, but like my family life and my personal life and my marriage could not be better, which is refreshing because I came in like 2008. I mean, you remember I was in a very dark place. So you know, to be where I'm at now, like nothing but thankfulness and gratefulness. But yeah, I think it does change your perspective, and you see yourself more as a coach and somebody that wants to invest, you know, in the next generation. And they talk about, you know, in an individual's development, and I'm going to go into psychology class because I teach psychology at school. You know, there's a generation in people's lives, or a period of time in people's lives, where they have to make a choice between, am I going to be stagnant and just kind of dwell in the past and rest on my laurels and kind of talk about back when I was a kid, I could throw a football over those mountains and, you know, just focus on who I was and what I used to do? Or am I going to be willing to invest in the next generation? And that's like an important step in a person's, you know, personal development. And like, I feel like thankfully, because I was so content with where I was, that I could say, you know, I'm happy to invest. Like, you know, when I see guys like Johnny and Ray and Matt, you know, having success, like, for me, that's, you know, that's I mean, it sounds silly, but it's just like a small part of me is having that success because I was willing to put time and hours and energy into these kids. Yeah. You know, and it's just it's almost like a victory, you know, and I sit there watching those NXT pay-per-views by myself and, you know, just celebrating. Right. You know, just so excited to see those guys doing what they're doing. And, yeah, I definitely, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm in a good place now where I just take joy in my friends, you know, having success.
Well, I think as somebody who has had multiple conversations with you about it, and it's almost like John was saying, it changed for you when you got married, you became a dad. When somebody talks to you, it's almost like you can see, like I could talk to you about wrestling, and then I could talk to you about, hey, what's going on with the kids, and it's like, here's wrestling, here's this thing he loves to do, and then, hey, let me ask a question about how things are going with the kids and what they're up to, and then it's like, here's this thing that Josh feels like this is what he was meant to do, is be this dad that you are now, and all the other things, and it's awesome. But maybe that's what changes. To John's point, is there are a lot of guys who didn't go into that. They just kind of kept chasing it, and they are those bitter guys where you are not.
Because young Josh Prohibition would leave me stranded with no gas on the side of the road.
Doing an RVD taunt as I drove by. I mean, I matured and I grew up, and I think when we were young and dumb and we did things hot-headedly and make bad decisions, and I feel like we have matured a lot, and it's and you kind of were talking about how you can talk to me about wrestling, but then also talk to me about dad life and stuff, and I think I definitely do a good job of compartmentalizing life. For sure,
that's what I say. I live my life like a pie chart.
Yeah, for sure.
I found that that's the only way to survive with any sort of
100%
sanity.
Yeah, especially in the world of wrestling. Wrestling's crazy.
Yeah.
The people you meet, the things you see, the things you experience. It is and if you're in that 100% of the time, all day long, every day, like that's a dangerous life. Like, and even for me, like, I think back to some of those years, like 2006, 2007, 2008, like, if I would have went the other direction and said, not to school, I'm going to go full-time wrestling, like this is going to be it, like I don't know where I'd be or what I'd be doing, but it could be scary for me. Like I think it can be consuming. So for me, I definitely separated those worlds, and I love the craziness. Like I've always loved craziness. I love punk rock. I love wrestling. And in those kind of situations where I go to Mount Carmel on a Friday night and for 4 or 5 hours hang out with Kaplan, and just go crazy and have a crazy match, cut some promos and drink a few beers with Worldwide, like for me that's a release, and it's awesome. And like, and for that, for those 4 or 5 hours, it's amazing. And then the next day I take my kids to the zoo, and it's like, it balances the fact that I just got out of this crazy world.
We talked about Johnny very briefly, and obviously this is all stemming from watching the success and things that they have. But the mutual respect given back to you in one particular moment that I'm going to talk about, when we all went to NXT, sold out at the Agora here, and you get called out in the balcony, and they even throw a spotlight on it, and there's Johnny giving props to Josh Prohibition in front of this sold out crowd. Yeah,
that was one part surreal and one part unnecessary. Like Johnny didn't have to do that. Like
no,
like I helped Johnny, I definitely worked with him after hours at, the Cleveland All-Pro Training Center, and I got him on the road to Canada for the first time, and I did some stuff for him, and I tried to tell him, hey, this is a stupid bump. Like, why are you doing this at, a show with 15 people? So I tried to speak some common sense into him, but 99.9% of Johnny's success is Johnny, and his work and his talent. And, for him to do that in Cleveland at the Agora, which is, a venue that I've loved, for both music and wrestling. Yeah. That was surreal. And I, like as the light was on me, and people, I think Laporta started the chant, start chanting your name. Yeah, man, it was surreal. And like, I just kept saying to myself, like, man, this kid's a good kid. Like, he's a good kid. Like, and he doesn't forget where he came from. And I don't think that's ever going away. And I think that's part of the reason, guys like Triple H and Shawn Michaels, have kind of become so enamored with him, because he's just a good human being. And
Which
it's like
is so rare.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, and I think it's, those two guys now have taken Johnny under their wing, and they're mentoring him, so like, whatever tiny bit I've done, it's basically handed off to them. And, with, two of the greatest wrestlers in the history of the business now have taken this kid under their wing. Like, obviously they saw, what we've saw in Cleveland a long time ago, like this kid's special. And again, it's just, when he sends me pictures of him and, Shawn Michaels hanging out, I'm just like, how amazing is this? This dude that like, he idolized this dude. Is like, now they're like BFFs. Yeah. Like, I'm like, that's the coolest story ever. Like the fact that those guys have that relationship now, and I'm so happy and proud. And like I said, like, what a good kid. Like, he deserves it, man. Like,
you're Josh Bishop's Shawn Michaels, though, right?
That's unfortunate. You got to shoot higher than that, man.
But that, but Does that moment, at least for you, because, you know, as we sit here and you've been modest for these 2 episodes and everything now for the most part and humble, but does it give you the realization that, like, hey, man, I really am a part of some really cool legacy? Maybe it's small on the map and the blip on the radar of what professional wrestling is, but you certainly are a part of something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I recognize that I couldn't wrestle forever. So I've said it before. It's like part of you lives on in everybody that you train and invest in. And I feel like the same way about my students, you know. And I have a great relationship with my students. Like, I had a great relationship with the football and baseball players that I coached. And, you know, I'm thankful that I had a lot of great experiences with coaches above me when I played sports before wrestling. And then going into wrestling, you know, JT was a wild man, but he was a good coach, you know, like he taught me the basics. He got me out on the road. He did what he needed to do. He taught me the etiquette, you know, and it's like I've had so many guys being willing to invest in me that didn't have to. You know, when you see guys that have been on television taking their time and investing in you, it's like, what do they call it? Like paying it forward. It's like I owe wrestling a lot, you know, like I got to travel to other countries. I got to wrestle heroes. I made some cash. You know, I had experiences that you would never get. And it's like, you know, wrestling didn't owe me anything, you know, but it gave me a lot. And, you know, I feel like when I do things like take extra hours out of my day to help or talk to guys or work with guys, like, you know, that's just me, you know, paying it forward what I got from guys that didn't have to do it to me.
And from a rookie's viewpoint, seeing you in the locker room, being a locker room leader, you're a hell of a dude. You know, I mean, you're easy to get along with. You know, you're very affable.
Thank you.
Yeah, and, you know, just like you said, we enjoy having a beer with you and spending time with you, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that shows a lot, and I think that you were raised right, and for everything you've been through with wrestling, you know, it shows.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, there's a real nice bunch of guys in AIW, and AIW's, you know, working like a well-oiled machine now. So it's
it didn't always work like that.
No, there was days when AIW was it was quite a wild scene, but now it's like I said, it's kind of a well-oiled machine. There's a good group of guys that have come through there, and it makes it fun to hang around. You know, there was times in AIW where, like I said, it wasn't the best scene.
I don't think I even wanted to be there.
No, it was some ugly days. But yeah, so I mean, you know, thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice.
You know, you've kind of been through it all, through all kind of incarnations. You know, there was, you know, EIW to EFW, EFW to CCW, CCW to split into AIW and Extreme War. Then AIW splits up, and you know, you've seen it all. Did you ever think, though, like another deep question, that in 1999 that you would be sitting in my living room right now talking about how we're both coming up on 20 years involved in wrestling, and Pat Flanagan is still involved, and Matt Cross is still involved?
I knew that I would always love pro wrestling, but I'm not exaggerating. I said it last week. My first wrestling match for you in a ring, I said, this is it. We're going to break every table in this place. We're going to break every chair. We're going to go until we can't physically stand anymore, because this will be the only time in our entire life that we'll be in a wrestling ring. And we did it as such. Like, if
I think everybody that day felt like that. It was like one of those birthday parties you would go to or something, you know, like where they rented something.
I'm going to capture. I still have the VHS tapes. I'm going to capture them from that first match, and I'll put them up on YouTube. Of that match, but the amount of stupidity that we did. I remember Matt hit me in the hand with a pool cue, broke my finger. You know, I didn't even see it coming. I turned around, he goes to whack me. I put my hand up, and he hits me right square in the finger with a pool cue and just cracks my finger. But yeah, like I said, we just went balls to the wall because we didn't think that this would ever happen again. And it's funny, I always I tell my brother, Sensitive Steve and Mark Valley, who were two guys that went to school with John.
They also wrestled on the show.
Yeah, but I always tell them like how well you're doing, you know, like AIW's killing it. Like, they're bringing in big crowds, they're bringing in big names. The who's who of wrestling has come through AIW now. Like, John's got a good job. And they always laugh about it and say, like, John Thorne did it. Like, he was able to.
I mean, you know, I don't think anybody would have bet on me, probably. You know, like,
no, they just kept talking about how you would just sleep in English class all the time.
Always, yeah. Because, you know, like, the thing that was bad about it was I was a freshman in high school when this started. Yeah. So then I got wrapped into, even though it was like untrained high school people wrestling.
Yeah.
I get like wrapped into all of that,
And you got in with some bad influences.
I
Those
did.
EFW guys were bad news.
Like they would like dare me to drop out of high school and stuff.
Yeah.
Like all like I didn't, but like
Let me ask you a deep question
Let's hear
since
it.
you're making me. Let's get to the heart of the matter here. Let's go back to like 98? You came over to my house to commentate a backyard wrestling match between myself, M-Dog, Matt Cross, and my brother Creeping Death. Do you remember that?
I remember I also wrestled, I think, Joe Gabbard in your backyard.
Okay.
Fatal Concepts.
Okay, so you're like 15 or 16 at this time?
15 probably.
Okay. You commentate a match in my backyard. Very shortly after that, we start working for EFW, and those are the guys that I felt like were a fairly negative influence on you, most likely. What if you had gone the other route and you were a BWF guy, like with me and Matt and my brother and Tack, and
Tack, wow.
and if we had steered you down a much straighter path, do you think your life would be significantly different if you had not been under the influences of EFW, John Rotten, Matt Stryker, Shock Solomon?
That's a strange question. I think I probably would have gotten serious about wrestling maybe a little sooner.
Okay.
Because with those guys, it was kind of like all about a show. And then, when you're a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, and like these guys are bringing like all these girls around, and it was kind of like what you hear about the enticement of wrestling, but it wasn't even really wrestling, which was strange. So I saw some bad things probably at a very young age, but I never really dove head in,
Okay.
when you're seeing cocaine and stuff at 16 years old,
Yeah.
like
Hell yeah, from Kaplan.
I don't know, because you guys were very straight laced then.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we were crazy, but we were all militantly straight edge, and
But even that, like even my friends from high school, like I was hanging out with these guys more than my friends from high school,
Yeah.
So like I probably would have had like a dramatically different life because like, I don't know. I don't have any interaction with anybody from I grew up with or went to high school
Yeah.
with or school with or anything, because it kind of took me into this wrestling direction, and then like you and M-Dog are probably the only people from my hometown that I know. We didn't.
Yeah.
We were in totally different age groups.
yeah. Because I remember you and I used to have like kind of a strained relationship because
We've had ups and downs, probably much like both of us did with JT and everybody
yeah.
else.
Because I remember again you were hanging with those guys, and those guys and I never saw eye to eye just because.
Yeah, I was kind of like a stepchild, like
Yeah.
a divorced parent.
Yeah, because I never agreed with or bought into their BS, and
Because what people don't understand is like Josh and M-Dog and like the BWF, even though it was only 7 matches or whatever, backyard matches, like
Yeah.
these guys were kind of like worshipped as gods because they were older than all of us.
Right.
So like when me and his brother Steve and this Mark Valley were freshmen in high school, I believe Josh had graduated and M-Dog is a senior. So these guys are the older guys. They're doing this crazy stuff. They're in punk rock bands. Like Steve selling like Josh's band CD and fucking in the cafeteria, chair shot.
nice.
So like it was kind of a weird position for me to be in. But then like I have these other older guys that are promoting wrestling events, and they're picking me up from high school in like Mustang convertibles and like with like chicks in them. You know what I mean? So it was like a weird situation for me to be in.
Yeah. I always thought about that. How your life may have been different.
I turned out all right.
You did. That's why that's what I was saying. My brother Steve and Mark Valley, I always tell him like, Thorne's killing it. He's got a good job, good promotion.
It took a long time though.
I'm going to ask
20 years.
We'll go, it's all been personal, but we'll go a little bit more personal here. The landscape of wrestling, vastly different than what it was 20 years ago. And in particular, female wrestling. And I'm pretty sure, I think you know exactly where I'm going to go with this. You're raising 2. If they sit down one day while you're watching the network or anything else, and they have questions, and they want to see what Dad used to do, or and they start to think, hey, I want to be involved in this. What do you say?
That's an evolving answer. So if you had asked me that same question 5 years ago when my daughter Sophia was 2, I would have said absolutely not. And the reason is, look at wrestling, female wrestling 5 years ago. It was nothing more than strippers.
Yep.
Basically having, bra and panty matches.
Yeah.
And, if you look at it now, it's wrestling, and it's competitive, and there's some incredible athletes, and it's become respected. So like I said, 5 years ago, if you would ask me that, I said absolutely hell no way in hell would I ever allow my daughter to get into that.
Right.
Now, like, I would be more open to it.
And you've met some of these women that are making noise in wrestling.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, they're good girls, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but my daughters love wrestling already.
Okay.
And they beg me to watch the network.
This is true. I've seen the social media.
Yeah, and we've when I get really bored and we can't get outside, I'll throw the tights on and we'll throw on matches in our living room. My daughters love the Hurricanrana. That's her favorite.
Pull it off like a champ.
Yeah, and she's super athletic and strong. She's doing her pull-ups and stuff every day and her push-ups, and she loves it. And it's like, and she's got character already at 7. So, is there going to be like a second generation? I don't know what you'd call her, something Prohibition.
Yeah.
Sophia Prohibition, but. I don't know. I'd be way more open to it than 5 years ago when it was an absolute hard no.
Okay. I like it. I was thinking about it because I saw the social media posts. I'm like, I got to ask this because, especially with the fact that you're doing that in the living room.
Yeah.
I grew up as a boy, and we had 4 boys in my house, and we're wrestling around the living room. So of course we're gonna want to somehow get involved in wrestling when we get older. And
I may be doing them a disservice getting them into the world of wrestling because there's still, even though wrestling has cleaned up like
it's still
dramatically,
bad. Right.
There's still some stuff.
Yeah. You're still in locker rooms and things that occur.
Yeah. So
it's like craziness you will expose yourself to because you just know
it's you. Yeah.
But like, I couldn't imagine bringing like a civilian into that AIW locker room.
No.
And it's very tame locker room, but like compared to others. But it's just if you're not in the weird cult that is wrestling, you're not gonna understand the humor or any of it that goes on back there.
And I think sometimes obviously for 20 years we've become incredibly desensitized to the craziness. But like if you step back and kind of remove yourself from some of those situations, and you would just sit there for 10 minutes and do like a sociological experiment and watch what happens in a wrestling locker room and the conversations. You'll have you got Nick Gage walking down there bleeding buckets. You got Kingston doing Kingston things. Then you have Hornswoggle swoggling around. If you look at it, and there's Hornswoggle, using the restroom with the door wide open, standing there with nothing on, and it's like,
and then right next, 15 feet away, Ethan Page and you will be talking about being parents.
Yeah.
It's just every end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and like I said, it's the weirdest cross section of society. I remember for Absolution, I was like, I laughed a few times. I can't remember exactly who was in it. It was like 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, but it's like me, T-Money, Nasty Russ, and then on the other side you have like Trey Lamar, AJ Gray, and
Josh Bishop,
Cheech and
Colin.
and I stepped back and I was like, in what world are we operating in? It's like you got a Puerto Rican guy, you got 2 black guys, you got this guy like hillbilly school teacher, and I'm like going through all the list here. Like here we are calling this crazy wrestling match. Like this is the weirdest world like you could possibly imagine.
But at the same time, because of that, don't you kind of wish the rest of society was a little bit like wrestling from that standpoint?
I do. I think in that way wrestling breaks down barriers. Like when you talk about racial demographics and backgrounds and religion and whatever else, like the people that come together for one common goal of putting together a good wrestling show, like I don't think you see that in many other facets of life, like that diverse of a.
No, I agree. Like I always say, like there's no way that these 2 people would ever develop a friendship other than wrestling. You know,
like Nasty Russ and T Money.
Right.
Those are two of my favorite dudes on earth.
They love each other. Those guys are. I mean, those are brothers, right?
Like
there.
you throw Eddie Kingston in there, you know, like Street Guy, or Nick Gage did 5 years in prison, you know, robbed a bank.
Yeah.
You know, he's in there with school teachers, and you know, like just
a 10-time UFC veteran, Tom Lawler, is just hanging around doing his thing and whatever he's doing that week.
It does really break down a lot of barriers, you know. So as much as people like say like wrestling is scummy or dirty, or you would be hard pressed to get people with so many different political views and everything else into one. You know, you got the Duke and Worldwide just, you know, lacing their boots up next to each other. You know, like just totally different views on life. So I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, and everybody gets along. And besides, like, the occasional, like, new NXT star, like, everybody seems to do a nice job in the locker room and get along with everybody fairly well. And that's kind of the strange, you know, dynamic that we've created.
And I think that, you know, that's just kind of like the environment that I've tried to create, because I've seen the bad environments so many times.
Yeah.
What do you think about the new guys flowing in AIW? Do you think they're adapting well in both locker room and out in the crowd?
Are there any specific ones? Because I haven't seen like the new, like, so I've seen the Trey Lamars and you know, guys like that, but
People you know of, really.
Yeah, I mean, that match at Absolution, you know, I got to get in there with some of the young guys, you know, and so far so good. I mean, I think they're talented. You know, they were respectful. You know, again, the number one rule: don't hurt me. No, you know, no one hurt me, which is a wonderful thing. But yeah, I definitely have had positive experience with the AIW guys thus far, and you know, I haven't seen anything where I considered it a red flag or anybody that, you know, rubbed me really wrong or, you know, made me want to forearm really hard.
And it's been a lot of trial by fire, you know, with a lot of these guys, just throwing them to the wolves.
Yeah.
Like crazy too.
Yeah, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. When you look at the product AIW's put out, and you look at the guys that, you know, have wrestled here. I mean, it is the who's who of you know, not just independent wrestling, but if you look at, you know, the WWE now, it's like everybody. You know, how long was Seth Rollins the champ in AIW? Like,
for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's like all these guys have come through here. You know, so it's like if you know anything about the history of it, and you look at who's come through, it's. You know, it's
pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the greatest promotions in the Midwest. You know, it's like, you know, one of the best indie promotions probably in the country.
All right, put you on the spot here, because I think we've finally wound it down a little bit, although I'm sure this realistically could be like a 5-episode podcast if we wanted to be.
People get bored to
But
death.
put you on the spot. Did we see the last of Josh Prohibition in an AIW ring? It's been a while.
I would say no. I actually, you know, cards on the table. I took off after Absolution because I'm back at Cleveland State for my.
You're like one of those lifetime students.
This will be my 4th degree.
Oh my goodness!
And I just love paying out student loans. But anyway, this will be my final college degree. It'll put me at the top of the food chain as far as pay and all that other business. But anyway, it ended up being a significant amount of work. And to be confident in the ring, like John was talking about before, like I kind of lost my confidence. I need to be in really good shape. I need to have time in the ring. I need to feel like I'm at my best, or, you know, I don't want to go out there and shit the bed, you know, like
sure.
I hate having bad matches. I hate looking bad. So I got to be in a place where I feel like I can do my best. So anyway, you know, that being said, I'd like to come back in the new year to show you how serious I am. I just ordered new gear. New gear.
Bombshell.
So that being said, if I get new gear, then I have to be tan. And if I have to be tan, I have to be in shape. So you know, that motivates me, and I do think the 20-year anniversary, you know, I want to be, you know, better than I was when I was early on in my career. You know, I want to come out of my 20-year anniversary, and we're
gonna try to lock that date down as close to that date as possible.
Do it.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, yeah. Think about
do
that.
you and
like,
M-Dog 20 years?
I mean, what indie promotions run for 20 years, or what indie promoters run for 20 years?
Probably not that
crazy.
many.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a cool milestone, and I'll be down to celebrate, and I'd love to.
I don't feel like we're like 20-year career guys, though. You know?
No. I'd love to get in there and just tear it up at 40 years of age and 20 years into wrestling, and just and I would take great pride in that. So that's my goal. Yeah. So have you seen the end of me? No. I keep telling people I'd like to ride it till the wheels come off, until my knee goes or my shoulder goes, and. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, so, and this, I'll close it out here pretty quickly, but, like, I was having a conversation with some friends the other day, and when I'm teaching, that's a gimmick. Like, when I get up there and I talk about McCulloch versus Maryland and Gibbons v. Ogden and start talking about all this government stuff and the separation of powers between the House and the Senate and, like what I was doing today, that's a show, man. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm up there getting animated about stuff, government-related stuff, and that's not who I am. Honestly, when you put like a mic in my hand and I'm cutting a wrestling promo and I'm standing in front of a crowd of 500 people in Cleveland, that's the most real me you're going to get. Like, that's who I am. Like, and that gives me the opportunity to do that. So for me, when I step in that ring and I have that chance, like, I come alive. Like, that lights me up. Teaching exhausts me. Like, when I stand in front of a classroom 6 periods a day for 44 minutes and have to go up there and talk often about stuff that I don't think is even very interesting, and I have to make it, try to make it as interesting as I can for 16-year-olds who don't give a crap. That's exhausting to me. But if you put me in front of a wrestling, like when I cut that promo on Josh Bishop a few months back when he spit in my face and the crowd like got so up, I'm not kidding. I'm like, think about it right now. I was getting goosebumps. Like, that lights me up. Like nothing in the world can light me up. Like, that's my drug. So for me, like, the thought of not having that is like I don't think I can deal with that. Like, and I mean, I'm hoping, at the 30-year anniversary, we're here BSing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if I'll be wrestling at that point, but as long as you like can put a microphone in my hand and I can take a bump or two, like, I feel like, I'll be a happy man.
Well, I can't wait to be rolling in the gym because we work out of the same gym, and I just happened upon Josh Prohibition standing next to me doing curls, and I know he's getting ready for that next big match finally. And the other thing I learned about Josh Prohibition just now, even though it's 20 years later, it's not wrestling, but now it's teaching. Still chasing that big payday he thinks is coming here. Getting that big money, getting all these degrees. I can't say anything else except, thanks for sitting in with us. And
oh, thank you.
Man, this was a long time coming.
It was, and I'm sure we'll revisit this because there are so many different stories and avenues we can go down, especially if we add in a little bit of, some guests. Maybe we'll get you and the Duke on here.
Well, I was going to say, I'd hope that you can, I hope you get more downloads than the Duke. That's going to be my measure.
I would like to have you and the Duke debate your illustrious wrestling careers together.
Well, for Josh Prohibition and John Thorne, well, I guess Kaplan chimed in here, Worldwide at one point, Dom too. My name's Steve Guy, and we'll talk to you next week here on The Card Is Going to Change. Thanks, everybody.